I call this meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee to order. Kellen, will you please take the roll call?
Chairwoman Schlussman. Chairwoman Schlussman.
Sorry, I muted myself. Here, I'm here.
Vice Chair Geyer.
Here.
Member Amrian Beardsley. Member Bachna.
Here.
Member Haladina. Member Havanech.
Here.
Member Jordan.
Here.
Member Smith. ADE representative.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Item number 1 on our agenda for today is the call to the public. Director Williams, do we have any submissions?
Vice Chair Geyer, we do not have any calls to the public.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is the presentation and discussion of the outcomes from the State Board of Education's meeting on December 4th, 2017. Director Williams, please walk the committee through this agenda item.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee. I did send each committee member an email. It is the highlights from the December 4th meeting, and I did provide the hard copy to those who are in attendance today in person for the meeting. This can be found on the State Board's website. I just want to talk the committee members through what was. May I ask who just joined the line?
This is Audrey.
Thank you. I just want to walk the committee members through the discussion for the State Board. You will notice when I originally sent out the meeting agenda, I also provided to you the presentation that Dr. Fletcher from the department gave to the board. That presentation was in regard to data, and it was very informative, so I wanted to make sure that the committee members had that. And then I'd also broken down the audio so that if you chose to listen to what occurred at the State Board meeting on Monday, you also had the opportunity to do so. And looking off the highlights, one of the things I wanted to, or a couple things I wanted to point out from the data encoding validation portion of the preliminary A through F letter grades. And these are the things that were discovered through the data encoding validations, and then the board motioned and voted to do these. So the first one is we have to reopen the window to submit college and career readiness indicators only for those schools identified through the data encoding validation period. Roughly 5 schools would be affected by that motion. These schools had a human error. May I ask who joined the line?
Yes, this is Vicki Smith.
Thank you. So these schools, approximately 5 of them, due to some human error or some issues that they had within the system, looked as if they didn't submit their CCRA data, and it wasn't included in the calculations. So the department is working with those schools so that they may put their data back into the CCRI spreadsheet. The second bullet point is to award bonus points after the cut score has been set. This was brought up by numerous school districts and stakeholders within the field, stating that instead of setting the cut score using the standard deviation, including bonus points, to set the cut score using the standard deviation and award bonus points after. The third bullet point was to round points at the final calculation of points earned prior to calculating the percentage earned. So there were some questions raised from the field in regard to roundings. We wanted to make sure that that was clearly addressed at the Monday board meeting. The fourth bullet point is to cap the CCR points at 20 points and 2 bonus points. This bullet point came up because it was noted that some schools, because it is self-reported data, had self-reported and above 22 points. So we wanted to make sure that the intention of the board was captured within that CCRI spreadsheet. And then you'll notice the last bullet point is the board directed the department to work on creating a student growth to target score for accelerating students in the 8th grade. The department does need to work with Dr. Biederbender on creating that student growth to target score. So that is something that unfortunately I can't provide to you now because it needs to be created. However, the department and board staff will work closely together in order to have open communications with the committee members. Are there any questions in regard to the data and coding findings and actions for the board on Monday? Okay. Then Vice Chair Guyer, I would recommend moving on to item number 3.
Okay. Item 3 on our agenda today is presentation and discussion of the State Board of Education's direction to the Technical Advisory Committee. Director Williams, please walk the committee through this agenda item.
Thank you, Vice Chair Guyer, members of the committee. You will see on the agenda for today there are numerous areas in which the State Board directed the TAC to review. These areas revolve around what was submitted within the report from the Technical Advisory Committee. So for A, we have the ceiling effect on the SGT side of the growth measure in regard to rewarding students as excelling target. And Member Bachna, she walked us through what she had found within her data for that. B is changing the denominator of the K-8 acceleration measure to points eligible instead of that denominator of 10, hoping to allow schools to show that they are meeting acceleration measures and acceleration measures that they are eligible for. Lowering the N count in the ELL measure, and this is in hopes of picking up more schools within that measure of the 8th REF system. We also know that the ESSA allows for us to have a different N number within the ELL calculation than the other subgroups. D is the utilization of the hybrid model for the non-typical grade configurations. This is something that Member Guyer and Member Jordan worked on, and that the Technical Advisory Committee asked that further development be done in order to make sure that schools are being prorated correctly, especially for those schools that received a score of not rated or an NR. And then something that originally wasn't provided as a recommendation to the board, but through discussion, the board members voted and decided that it was something they wanted to continue to see, is that they wanted to continue to see the correlation between the free and reduced lunch, and they wanted additional information to be brought forth to the board. In regard to the free and reduced lunch, they also asked for more sophisticated indicators of risk. So as you know, Member Haladina is very passionate about his other indicators for risk. So although he's not on the line today, I'm sure once he gets back from vacation, I will have a conversation with him and he'll be very excited to hear that. So they asked for some type of report identifying those additional risk factors that could be added to future iterations of the 8th REF letter grade system. So do you guys, any committee members, have any questions in regard to things that the board voted upon and sent back to the TAC?
Director Williams, I just had a quick question regarding the correlations and the potential exploration of the risk measures that will require additional data potentially being provided by the department in order to explore that different types of contributors to risk. So I just wanted to raise that as a possible thing for the department to consider in support of evaluating additional risk factors.
Thank you, Vice Chair Guyer. So I think that kind of gets into our next step of the reason why I asked you all here on such short notice from the board meeting on Monday.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So, Acting Chair Guyer, Executive Director Williams. So your question about clarification of the assignments was regarding the assignments from the State Board of Ed at the Monday meeting, correct?
Dr. Schlesman, I believe that Member Geyer's question was in regard to item 3E, which is the free and reduced lunch correlation, and 3F, which is the creation of a report on additional risk factors. He was making a point stating that more data would be needed from the department in order to do those two things.
Yes, I understand that, but I was going back to your question that prompted his comment. That your question was something about, was there any additional discussion of the assignments to the TAC from the State Board of Ed? And that's what I was trying to clarify. Are those the assignments from Monday's meeting?
Vice Chair Geyer, Dr. Schlesman, that is correct. These are the assignments 3A through F that have been assigned to the Technical Advisory Committee. And then one of the reasons we are meeting today on such short notice from Monday's meeting is because I want to bring some things to the committee's attention, and then I want to walk through next steps with the committee members so that we can have a better understanding of the timeline.
Yes, thank you. I would address Acting Chair Geyer and then Executive Director Williams. And the reason I was asking that is that on Monday, there were additional assignments from the State Board of Ed to this Technical Advisory Committee, and there were assignments earlier about other types of schools. And so my understanding is that this is our concentration now, is to work on these traditional school assignments that came on Monday. And that's what I was trying to clarify.
Vice Chair Geyer, Dr. Schlesman, what I think you're referring to is that the direction of the State Board provided direction to the Technical Advisory Committee at the last meeting to review alternative education data. However, right now the Technical Advisory Committee really needs to finish up the traditional school A through F system, and then we will focus our attentions to the alternative ed accountability plan.
Yes, Acting Chair Geyer and Director Williams, that was what was behind my question. I didn't make it so obvious because I agree that these are the assignments that we need to concentrate on right now, is getting the traditional model in place. So thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. Vice Chair Geyer, Dr. Schlesman, thank you. Vice Chair Geyer, if I could continue with just informing the Technical Advisory Committee of what's going on in regard to item 3.
Vice Chairman Geyer, I've got one question, and Member Bachna might be able to help us out with this a little bit. Member Bachna, when you did your analysis of the possible ceiling effect, were you working on your student level data for your own district, or were you looking at the entire data file that we received from the ADE?
Student data from my own school district, my own static file.
Okay. Vice Chairman Geyer, the reason for my question, if Member Bachna is working on student-level data, that may be something that the ADE may need to do in looking at the possible ceiling effect, because we won't have access to the student-level data file. Unless we think that we can do it with the data set that we get already.
So Vice Chair Geyer, Member Jordan, to that point, let me explain some things that have occurred that all the committee members need to know, and it kind of plays right into your question with the student data from the department, if I may. Okay.
Yeah.
So what needs to occur from the Technical Advisory Committee is that these recommendations that the Technical Advisory Committee gave to the State Board need to be modeled using the data that was either provided to you in data set 3.0, which was given to the Technical Advisory Committee on November 30th. I believe it was the morning of our last meeting. I remember Dr. Schlesman was talking about the 3.0 data file. In having conversations with the department, Dr. Fletcher is still working on her data encoding validations, and the consultant, the consultant that the board is attempting to get is still a work in progress. We thought we had someone available to do it, but it turned out we did not. So what I am proposing is that the Technical Advisory Committee members take a look at the options that we have on our agenda from 3A through 3F, and we discuss what each committee member feels comfortable taking in terms of modeling. Then the next step would be for that committee member to inform myself and the ADE representative what type of new data they would need in order to complete modeling. And then the third step would be to talk about when we can get together next to discuss the modeling from the committee. Now, I did have a conversation with Chair Schlesman a few days ago, and I know that Dr. Schlesman has talked about potentially taking item 3C, lowering the end count of ELL learner, that measure. Dr. Schlesman has felt that she would be comfortable in trying to run that data. Dr. Schlesman, is that something that you are still comfortable with doing?
Yes.
Okay. And Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee, just so you know, I can reach out to 3F for the report of additional risk factors. I will reach out to committee member Haladina. Was there anyone else who could potentially be interested in looking at additional risk factors for future iterations, but knowing that we need to make sure that we're getting 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D utilized?
This is Audrey. I would work with Dr. Haladina on that.
Thank you. Okay. Vice Chair Geyer, member Bachna, is 3A, member Bachna, something that you'd be interested in, since it was something that you brought to the TAC's attention in regard to that ceiling effect?
Yes, I would. But I would need to see student level data, and I need to see the variable that's associated with student growth to target in terms of what level was assigned to it. So right now, I can't see that in my own static file. So I would actually need to see how that is portrayed in the data from ADE. And
Vice Chair Geyer, member Bachna, I caught some of that, but for the remainder of your thought, do you think you could email that to me so I can have a discussion with Dr. Fletcher and the department? Sure. Okay, thank you. And then the Vice Chair Geyer, member Bachna, in regard to the student level data is housed at the department. So maybe we can have an offline discussion on some availability of you and your time, member Bachna, to see if we can get you into the department to use the student level data.
This is Audrey. I think that with Dr. Haladina and I would also need student level data to look at the risk factors by student.
Okay, so member Beardsley, if you also want to just... If you also just...
Acting Chair, excuse me. Acting Chair Geyer, Director Williams, this addresses Member Beardsley's comment, is that my understanding right now is that ADE does not have those additional risk factors in their data set. So I thought that the State Board of Ed was looking more for a description of what would need to be collected and what those risk factors are from your areas and your expertise.
Vice Chair Geyer, Dr. Schlesman, and Member Beardsley, I think both of you are correct. So if there are examples or literature, articles written, or just basic knowledge of additional risk factors that would be appropriate to submit to the board, But Member Beardsley, if you feel that you would still like to come into the department and look at some student level data to determine if there are any additional risk factors that are currently in the data, board staff as well as myself, we would have no issue in trying to schedule that for you.
Yeah, I think the easiest solution would be just to see what student level data are existent, because I know enough about what Dr. Halladine is talking about, like ELL, and I believe it's a binary variable in the data set. So probably just to verify or just have knowledge of what variables are in the student level data set would suffice for our purposes.
Vice Chair Geyer, Member Beardsley, thank you. Okay. And for Vice Chair Geyer, I'm looking at 3B, changing the denominator. Is there a committee member who would feel comfortable with utilizing that change?
Vice Chair, I can take care of 3B and or 3E, unless you want to take on 3.
Member Jordan, I was actually just going to raise the idea of my working on 3D as the data permits. So, and any additional support toward 3E as well.
What I've done with 3E in that realm already, I've taken the ADE enrollment data that's available from the accountability, and from that, I pulled out the schools along with their programs breakdown. One of them is the free and reduced lunch, and then already doing a join with the A to F letter grade file from the ADE. So a lot of that's already done. I've done some preliminary analysis of that, looking at percentage of free and reduced lunch in relation to SGP scores, SGT scores, proficiency rate, and that's already included in the data file. So.
Okay. And Vice Chair Geyer, Member Jordan, and members of the committee, I have a question written down on my notes that I wanted to bring up in regard to 3E. It would be my understanding that maybe we would want to wait on investigating the free and reduced lunch correlation until we potentially change any of the business roles within the A through F plan. Is that a correct assumption, or is it better to look at the current plan as it stands, potentially make changes, and then have to do it all again? I mean, I feel as if that's duplicate work, and I don't want the committee to have to do multiple iterations of modeling.
Yeah, Director Williams, a number of the items under 3 would have the potential to change, in some cases maybe significantly, the actual percent earned on the letter grade, which would then change the correlation. So as you state, yes, running the correlation after some of that modeling work would potentially reduce the amount of analysis required due to that not having to redo analysis work as these decisions come in or as the board decides on various actions. So,
okay.
Member Jordan, do you agree or disagree, or what's your opinion on it?
No, I'm fine with waiting, so that's fine.
So I think, Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee, if we look at 3E, what I'm thinking in my head is that we have today's meeting, we take our quote-unquote assignments, and we take some time, knowing that the holidays are right around the corner, and we meet maybe in 3 weeks, which would put us right at December 29th, which is a Friday. I just don't know what people's availability looks like if they're going to be out of town for the New Year's or visiting family. In any regard, whenever we meet, we make sure there's enough time for modeling. We meet, we discuss each individual indicator and each individual change to determine if the change is significant enough. What do we find within that change? And then we can have maybe a few people put everything together in order to determine what it looks like on the whole entire system. Again, providing time for that modeling to take place. I would like to get the committee's feedback on my master plan.
December 29th, this is Audrey. December 29th is not ideal. Just, I will be one that will be out of town, but I can certainly try to figure out how to call in, but I'll be out of the state. I did want to follow up, sorry to kind of backtrack just momentarily, but I think our ultimate goal is to get this correlation that we're all talking about as close to zero as possible. And so all the things that we're doing, as per the state board's request, theoretically should get us closer to zero. And so if it's not too difficult to have where we are in that correlation at this point as kind of like the pretest, and then all these manipulations that we're going to test and try and adopt might be a good barometer to use from the beginning until the end, that we can also demonstrate to the state board and others that we're making progress and going in the right direction. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Acting Chair Geyer?
Yeah, go ahead.
My response to Member Beardsley is we have kind of a pretest with the data that you ran and that was included in the report we gave on Monday. We have some correlation coefficients there.
Correct.
Okay, that would be fine. And I missed that. I've been absent, so that would be fine. If we can use those as our barometers, that would be fine. Pretest barometers.
Okay, and Vice Chair Dr. Schlesman and Member Beardsley, board staff will make sure that you have all of that information.
Okay.
And Vice Chair Geyer, if I can just go through the different items to make sure that we pick up everybody. So 3A would be Member Bachna, and then 3B, Member Jordan. 3C, Dr. Schlesman. 3D, I don't have anyone for currently. Is that something that maybe you would be interested in doing?
Yes, I'd be interested in looking at that.
And then Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee, if we look at 3E, we can take the recommendation by Member Beardsley, use the .-56 with the additional indicators that Member Geyer ran, and Member Jordan, if you want to submit any of your things that you've done already, then we can at least make the committee members aware of that data for that baseline. And then Member Beardsley will look at 3F along with Member Haladina. And I do know that we have new Member Smith on the phone. And Member Smith, you were recently appointed on Mondays, so welcome to the Technical Advisory Committee. Member Smith, is there anything that you, looking at the agenda, would be interested in looking at? Vice Chair Geyer, maybe Member Smith is no longer with us, so board staff will check into that. Member Hovanich, is there anything that interests you that you would like to take a deeper dive into?
There are issues that interest me, but based on the timeline, I will not be able to investigate that by the next meeting. So.
Okay. Vice Chair Geyer, thank you. Member Hovanich, I'm also wondering if you can, I know a couple meetings back you stated that you were working on a document for your organization, and you stated it was going to be released. Has that document been released yet?
Yeah, it has. I can send that to you.
Thank you. And is it okay if I share that with the committee members?
Yes.
Director Williams, this is Vicki Smith. I'm sorry I was on mute.
No, Vice Chair Geyer, Member Smith, no worries. Welcome to our committee. We just, is there anything that you would feel comfortable joining in?
Yes, I would like to join in with the growth piece and the ceiling effect.
Okay. And Member Bachner, are you okay with some additional help?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So Vice Chair Geyer, I think what we can do moving forward is I will clean all this up so that each committee member knows what each committee committee member is working on. I would suggest that committee members send me an email with any additional information or data that they would need in order to complete this task. I do know that we will talk about future meeting dates at agenda item number 4. However, I want to make sure that all questions have been answered from committee members prior to moving on to item number 4. Do any committee members on the phone have any questions in regard to item number 3? Or do we feel good about that?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
No further questions?
Okay, perfect. I would suggest moving on to item number 4, then we can discuss the next meeting.
Yeah. Item number 4 on our agenda is discussion of future meeting dates and items for future agendas. Director Williams?
So Vice Chair Guyer, members of the committee, I just, in my head and looking at the calendar, knowing next week is the 11th, and then we have the 18th, and then we have the 25th, which is Christmas. So I'm really trying not to have any committee members do any work the week of Christmas. So there's 2 weeks between the 8th and the 22nd. I was looking at December 29th as potentially meeting again. I just would like to understand the availability of the committee members for that date. I was also looking at January 5th and January 12th. But remember, I would like to have the committee come back, have each committee member discuss their portion of item 3 on today's agenda, and then discuss next steps. So in order to discuss next steps, we want to make sure that the third meeting for this task, we have enough time to run modeling in between meeting number 2 and number 3, and that we also have enough time between meeting number 3 and the state board meeting in January, which is on the 29th. So
Acting Chair Guyer, Director Williams, I'll talk about availability. The 29th would be ideal, but I'm about 50-50 of whether I'm going to have connectivity or not. So I can't commit 100% to being present for a meeting on the 29th to contribute to a quorum. I know you mentioned the 5th of January, which is absolutely clear for me at this point. If you wanted, but that makes the whole thing a bit tight. So if there is availability as early as January 2nd or 3rd, that might be more workable. So, and that's one person. So I think we should all contribute our perspective on what our schedules are like.
Thank you, Dr. Schlesman. Director Williams, I just wanted to add that I'm actually locked out of town on the 29th of December. I will only be able to participate via telephone. So that is an airplane travel itinerary, which is a little less flexible. So I will only be telephoning on the 29th. But any week after that is fine.
Oh, the 29th is fine, or the 5th, either one.
okay. And Member Bachna or Member Hovanich, Member Smith?
This is Christy Hovanich. I am not available on the 29th.
Okay. Member Bachna?
I am not available on the 29th.
Okay, so we'll just stop there. Vice Chair Guyer, what I'm seeing is maybe that week is not going to work, but committee members, does that give you enough time to model your data? If we were to go into the next week of January. I mean, that was really where I was concerned in trying to schedule it on the 29th, because I wanted to make sure that you had enough time to model data and to do some data work, but also have time to spend with your family.
Director Williams?
Acting Chair Guyer?
Yeah.
Director Williams? Yes.
I was just going to say that possibility of the 2nd of January, if that were an available time for the committee members, as well as the 5th.
Okay. So Vice Chair Geyer, what I will do is I will work with board staff to find a date with the committee members for that first week of January. And then I also want to remind the committee members that I did ask for the committee members to send me days of the week that work best for them so that we can set a standing date and time for this committee to meet, and I only heard back from a few people. So if you could please make sure you send me that, that would be most helpful, especially with scheduling meetings. I kind of like Friday afternoons. I think we all work really well on Friday afternoons, but please let me know if that doesn't work for you. So Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee, again, board staff will work on scheduling the next meeting, which will be about 3 weeks out, to give each member time to run modeling. And then coming from this meeting and what we discussed under item number 3, committee members will review the data in the data set 3.0 that the department gave them on November 30th. And they will email me with any other information that they may need from the department. If they feel as if they need student level data, they will also send me an email. And I will work with the department and the member to get them scheduled to come into the department to run data on the student level information. And then the next meeting is when we will look at the modeling and the information that each TAC member has reviewed.
Yeah, thank you, Director Williams.
Okay.
Is there any other information, agenda action?
Vice Chair Geyer, members of the committee, I have no more information to share, but maybe committee members have any comments or questions, or they have things that they would like to see on future agendas.
Nothing at this time.
Acting Chair Geyer, Director Williams, I don't know what's the correct word to say at this time of year, but happy holidays to all.
Thank you, Dr. Schlesman. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We are adjourned at 3:38 p.m. Thank you, Director Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you.